and I hope it is clear now. I was trying to give you the background of the institution which I work with, saying that it holds, it serves the biggest number of people, over a quarter of all people who own accounts in commercial banks. So it has gone a long way to serve people with their 74 branches across the country, from Koboko to Kotido to Bwera, all across the country, with 181 ATMs, automated teller machines, again spread across the country, and employing one of the biggest teams in this country that has been employed by any organization, almost 3,000 staff that are being employed by this bank. Thank you. Of course, that graph goes to show you the trend in number of depositors, which I said it is slightly over a quarter of all the people that have accounts, formal accounts in commercial banks. These are the borrowers, the over 250,000, again, the biggest number of people that have been given loans in this country. And of course, as far as profitability is concerned, by the end of last year, the bank had made over 155 billion, which was a return on equity of over 4%, and a return on assets, or rather on return on equity of over 24%, and return on assets of over 4%, which numbers should be considered decent numbers, until, of course, we came into the kind of situation that we are facing currently, which I guess is also going to form the basis of our discussion today. What may constitute hard times, I guess, as I said, all of us should be able to appreciate. Most of you, if not all, have managed. I'm still managing, and there are crises, turbulences, situations that are not normal, whereby at the same time we must manage. If we take into account what has just happened, the situation under which we are now, where there was a lockdown and we experienced hardships in the movement, limited social interaction, while at the same time business had to go on because people, our customers, had to be served. So we witnessed increased use of technology. Of course, when there's limited movement, when there's no transport, while at the same time work has to continue, we had to have some people work from home. And working from home, of course, posing all sorts of issues, problems, in terms of how do you ensure that you manage performance of people whom you are not directly supervising, whom you may not know what they are up to, but at the same time work has to go on. There are those who had to go with gadgets connected remotely to the systems. How do you ensure that there is security of data, of information that they are using? All those things came along. Of course, need to ensure protection of staff and the customers that we serve. All that conspired to make the environment under which to manage very, very challenging. And in the process, we're also faced with a harsh economic environment. I'm sure those of you who've been reading reports, economic reports, you know that by the time we ended the financial year in June, the economy had grown by just slightly over 3%, as opposed to the 6% that had been anticipated. And they said that, in fact, that last quarter, there was environment. And in the process, as management had to go on, decision-making became highly centralized. I remember at office, we were almost making decisions for all, because they had to be quick, taking into account what was evolving, and things were evolving very fast. And we had to ensure that managers, wherever they are they do absorb and take in all these developments in good time and therefore be able to make very good decisions. We witnessed quantitative displacing qualitative. By the beginning of the year, we were talking about how much profits we're supposed to make. We were talking about how much loans, were supposed to disburse, to give out to people. But when times became harsh, that turned from looking at the quantities, that targets that we had at the beginning, but looking at quality. We started now asking ourselves, how do we ensure that the loan portfolio that we have remains qualitative, with good quality and performing? And even that little that we are giving out, how do we ensure that we are giving it to qualitative borrowers? Things turned into from quantitative to qualitative. As I said, we started with the targets of profits. We made 155. This year we are supposed to make 170. But then after the harsh environment that came along, we were like, how do we ensure that we make up qualitative profits? If we were using IFRS 9 to do the provisioning of loans, we needed now to relook at circumstances and factors that we would be considering in order to ensure that we pick and capture any potential bad loans in good time and be able to provide for them rather than waiting, thereby not being able to post fictitious profits. So that was the kind of environment that we're in. We still continue to be in. However, as they usually say, every cloud has a silver lining, and it is important that we always we don't look at things in the bad light all the time. We need to look at the silver lining of that comes along. And we realized that there were opportunities to take account of rethinking business models. Probably that was the time to look at the things that we are doing to determine that probably they were not the best. And this is the thing that we needed to look at. Things like how do we ensure that we continue to be efficient? In the morning, in the presentation, I think under corporate governance, there were those strategies whereby they said we needed to do more with less, with the speed being taken as a priority over elegance. How do we continue to do more with the less that we had? We had to think technology. We had to ensure that we stay connected despite all the challenges that came along. And we thought those would be things that eventually would make our business become more efficient, more relevant, things like financial inclusion. We've been talking about financial inclusion, and that was the time to realize that it was more important than ever before to have as many people come into the banking space to be able to effect transactions, to be able to do shopping in the supermarkets, to be able to do payments all over the place and so on. And this is when we talk about, when we had to reconsider the 4 pillars of financial inclusion, whereby services had to be affordable. Affordability is a key pillar of financial inclusion. Accessible. You realize that was the time to emphasize the various channels of distribution. We have our 74 branches, which we were always, thinking that would be the principal the channels of distribution of our services. But we realized that it was more important for people to access services digitally or remotely using the mobile banking platform that we have, the Center Mobile. And by the time we came to June, we had got about 30% of all the transactions were going through the mobile banking platform. 25% were going through the agents, the agent network that we have. About 19% only were going through the branches that we have, the physical, places of distribution or delivery of services. ATMs were doing about 22%, meaning that if we were to promote that kind of development, we would become even more efficient. We wouldn't continue probably opening as many physical branches, which are very expensive. to maintain, but rather making sure that people get connected on their phones and use the mobile banking platforms. So these were kind of the things that were a revelation that we needed to push, despite the challenges. But again, looking at the challenges that we have in management as something that opened eyes, that opened the resources to these kind of systems that would prove to be more efficient. Again, as I said, when we are in such a situation, how do we ensure that we have leadership that befits those moments? Here there is a quote by one of a book writer called Nassim, who said that the world can be divided into 3 categories. The first category is one called fragile. Fragile is whereby you should avoid disorder and disruption for the fear of the new. So you can characterize yourself as being fragile as a business. You can characterize yourself as being fragile, somebody who avoids disorder. But here we are in a disorder. So what would happen? Yet business had to go. The second characteristic is what he called robust, whereby you can stand up to shocks without changing who you are. So you can decide to be this. Prepare the barriers to stand up to the disorder, but you continue, you don't change, you continue to do things the way you've been doing them. Then the third category is what he called anti-fragile. This is where if shocks and disruptions make you stronger and more creative, you want to decide who you should be, especially in an environment like the one we're undergoing now. Do you want to be fragile? Do you want to be robust? Do you want to be anti-fragile? Anti-fragile, of course, would be a thing that would respond to an environment of disorder, to an environment of change. As we know, the only constant is change. And of course, if you are to continue prospering, if you are to continue delivering services, you can't avoid that change. And it means when things change, you have to change. You need to rethink models of operation. You need to see how you are able to continue operating and possibly in the end, even operating in a better way. That becomes the ideal situation in which you need to be. So what sort of leadership would take you through such an environment? And this is where we talk about the management and leadership. We've been told managers maintain status quo. Those are probably the fragile ones, while leaders usually decide to be change agents. Managers control risk, while leaders take controlled risk. And here I quote Professor Balunya, who said that when you are managing, you need to do what you must do. And you must be honest enough. And even if you have to piss off people, that is what they call leadership. So we need, in hard environment, in hard times, to exercise that kind of leadership that makes you be anti-fragile, being able to confront the situation as it is, being able to be agile, being able to think of new ways of maneuvering and getting through such hard environments. There is every time we were at school, we used to read about Peter Drucker as a management guru. He quoted and said, management is doing things right, while leadership is doing the right things. Management is doing things right, while leadership is doing the right things. For example, during the lockdown, whereby you remember when they announced in the evening that tomorrow vehicles of this nature won't move, public transport is stopped. Consider yourself in a situation whereby you have to deliver service the following day. And banking is a very tricky business whereby you can't lock out people who want to withdraw their money. So we needed to ensure that business operates the following day. Now, staff all over the place, they don't have transport, but they must come. In the real ideal environment, if you were to do things right, it would be that you have to ask for a budget. It needs to be approved for you to be able to hire vehicles that would bring staff to office to serve. But there was no time to do that. So you had to do the right thing. And the right thing was quickly identify the few vehicles that are available, ensure that they go out there, identify the critical staff, ensure that they are picked and they are in office by 9 to begin serving the clients, the customers that would come to be served. So you are doing the right thing rather than doing things right, as I've mentioned. And this is what it calls for in an environment which is a crisis, in an environment where things are hard. So in hard times, there is need for both strong management and leadership. For example, you would realize that when downtown, there was no transport, people, the shops were locked, you had to quickly make a decision that that branch closes, this one opens. In the normal environment, you needed to seek for permission from Bank of Uganda for you to close a branch, even for an hour. But you needed to quickly make the decision and do the right thing, because if you don't close, people won't be able to go there, first of all, or those who may go there may be the wrong ones, and you needed to make that quick decision. And that's the leadership that we are talking about. Leaders who see possibilities where others see limitations. This is the thing that comes to mind. Leaders who take risks, leaders who use influence and power, and leaders who lead to serve. Leaders who lead to serve, leaders who achieve results, and leaders who transform. And usually in hard times, there is need for quick scenario thinking and planning, because there are all these uncertainties, and they need to be taken into account for you to be able to make the right decision. I talked about how we quickly transformed the mode of delivery of service from using only the over-the-counter, the branches, and emphasized the mobile or platforms, emphasizing the use of agents as a delivery mechanisms, emphasizing people to use cards, because currently Centenary Bank has the biggest number of Visa cards out in the market, close to 1 million cards. We don't have many in this country, but this 1 million that we have as Centenary, which is about 40% of all the Visa cards that are out there in the market. That is when now people realize that they can use their Visa cards to do so many things, to pay for membership fees to CPA Uganda, to go and, the supermarket and, purchase things, or do electronic commerce, go to a website and order for things and so on. And we've seen these ones, increasing. And of course, initially the fear was people don't know how to use cards. How will they use them? How will they ensure that they are safeguarded? Because there are all those attendant risks that come along. But in the process, this is being transformed, and we are seeing many people taking up these cards. So that is the kind of leadership that we probably want to always have in hard times. What are the behavioral responses? As we do this management, as we do this leadership, changing things, transforming things, there are behaviors that you want to always exhibit. Don't fear criticisms. Hard times should always be looked at as opportunities to change things. And there is this CEO of Amazon who said that if you cannot tolerate critics, don't do anything new or interesting. So especially in hard times, no fear for criticism, as long as it is a calculated risk that you are taking, as long as it is something that is going to transform things. It is very important not to fear criticisms. I remember when there was that lockdown and then we were minimizing contacts, we decided that we stop all the lifts. Mapera, the head office is 15 floors. We stopped all the lifts and we said, everybody has to walk if you want to go to 15th floor. If you can't walk to the 15th floor, you are a candidate to stay home. And of course, there was jittery, people were jittery and everybody was unhappy. But after like a week, Those who had endured the walking were even feeling better and they were happy. And in the process, of course, lifts are very big energy consumers. We are paying about 100 million of electricity that runs that building. But when we stopped the lifts, the cost reduced to about 70 million a month. So in the process, again, you see all those efficiencies that come along. But of course, after some time, because there are so many means of contacting you, there are so many means of interacting that have been now revealed, which we can use. And of course, as our customers, we will say we will come to you if we must. Otherwise, there are so many means that we can get together. We also said people who have been bringing food to this building, stop it. People are like, where are we going to get the food? But in the process, people understood, why we needed to minimize contact. So that is what I said of the thing of not fearing criticism, as long as at the end of the day, it is something that is being believed in, something that is going to make a transformational change. Don't fear responsibility or making mistakes. As we do these changes, as we do the leadership, of course, we make many mistakes. But that doesn't make that you shouldn't make decisions. So we shouldn't fear making mistakes. When I was in Kenya, they quoted this saying in Swahili, which said that if you fear being seen naked, you probably will never have a child. Again, it is fearing responsibility. If you know you want to have a child, you need to do whatever is supposed to be done for you to get what you want. And that is not the fearing of responsibilities. Again, agility and swiftness becomes very critical. There is this gentleman who said that in the new world, it is not the big fish that eats the small fish. It is the fast fish that eats the slow fish, especially during the hard times that we currently have. As they used to say, survival for the fittest. Now it is survival for the fastest. Those who can move fast, those who are agile, those who are swift. So as we do the management, as we do the leadership, these are behavioral traits that we want to always espouse to be able to manage through hard times. Change management and transformation. What are the things that we think we need to pay attention to? One of them is, of course, to quickly understand the need for change. When there was that announcement that public transport won't be there, it dawned on us that there was of course, planning for change shouldn't be inward only. We need always to take into account the external factors as we do the planning for change. The next thing is to ensure that all stakeholders are involved. When we are doing transformational change, you want always to be aware of all the stakeholders and map them. And research has shown that usually among the people that are involved in those changes, 20% are resistors. For them, they will come to resist. There are those bystanders who are waiting to see what is going to happen. The biggest number, 60%. Then there are those who will quickly share in the need for change and are ready to help, 10%. And of course, the champions, the change agents, about 10%. So the idea is to understand who falls where and be able to manage, those stakeholders, to be able to involve them. Of course, the key will be to ensure that the bystanders are quickly turned into helpers or champions to be able to help change to happen, to be able to transform things and address the issues that are at hand. Enlist those change agents. I remember when they announced that, of course, we had been anticipating, but we quickly formed ourselves into a meeting of leaders, and we are meeting almost every day, sometimes morning and afternoon, to be able to absorb any changes that may have evolved during the day or are likely to evolve the following day, so that we are able to capture all of them in the decisions that we'll be making. Of course, developing a strategy and vision which should be tangible, desirable, flexible, and focused and simple. When we were starting to see how to change things during the hard times, we said the simple objective that we want to achieve is to ensure that we continue to serve our customers no matter what happens. That was the simple objective, which had to be shared by everybody so that we could jump over bridges, we could jump over walls, as long as every sense of urgency. It was always urgent. You know, it is very, you probably don't want to be managing crises all the time, but in a situation like this, you want to create a sense of urgency. And of course, communication became very critical. Communication, they usually say communicate, communicate, communicate. People usually make a mistake of communicating once and thinking that everybody has understood. So what we do is communicate almost every hour, repeat things, use all channels of communication, you know, create WhatsApp groups, have the phones off the hook, have the emails. We have now Team or Zoom, you know, communicating to each and everybody. And in the process now, every week, up to now, every week, we have an update to the entire network because we all connect through Teams. Every Thursday morning, we have what we call the MDs Connect. So I have to speak to all of them every week about what has happened and where we are going and the things that we need to do. So communication becomes very critical in times of change when you are going to make any transformational change. We have to act and take action, and it has to be visible. People have to see you act. People have to feel the actions. That's when they will understand that things are very serious. There's no procrastination. And of course, consolidating quick wins. You deliberately plan for some quick wins, which we can use, you know, for people to appreciate that whatever we've been going through was not in vain. There are results that are visible, and we can celebrate them. And once we've celebrated them, then we set other targets, again, for people to be able to achieve. I remember again when there was that lockdown, we said it is very hard to open branches, but we said, let's concentrate on ensuring that the head office is operating and the branches, those which are outside the CBD, Central Business District, open. We achieved that, and the evening when we met, we said we've served people, we've served so many clients, everybody was reporting, and that created a sense of achievement, a sense of, again, satisfaction, and making people ready to take on additional challenges that and targets that will be set. As we do those changes, of course, there will always be challenges, and these are some of them. Of course, managing multiple teams is not a simple thing. Differentiating the needs for multiple sites. We have 74 branches, one of the biggest branch networks as far as banking is concerned. Being able to coordinate all of them, understanding the needs of each one of them. You remember there was different SOPs for branches which are on the border, for branches which are within the country, and we needed to ensure that we balance the needs of all these teams that are operating remotely. And of course, the other challenge is to ensure that as we make decisions, we are in position to update appropriate documents and align with changes. Because usually big institutions, and I believe all institutions, have policies, have procedures. People usually know if it is HR, they know if you do this, this is what happens. But when you get into a situation where certain things can be changed abruptly, at the end of the day, again, for purposes of ensuring uniformity, you need to document, you need to update policies and procedures. But given the speed with which you are making decisions, the speed with which you are taking actions, it becomes very difficult to quickly be able to align and update policies and procedures to ensure that everybody knows in a standard way what is going on. Of course, juggling multiple simultaneous changes, you know, there are so many changes that would be taking place, and reversing a problematic one or an ineffective one, you know, becomes a challenge, especially when people are already in the mood they are in the rhythm, then you say, oh, we've realized it is not the right one, please change. I remember when we were implementing the use of biometrics, we had just started saying, everybody, you must use a biometric when you come for you to be identified. But when COVID came, it was like, it is now very difficult because people will be touching things, gadgets, and so on. Let's first stop it. But later, of course, we said, no, this is a good control for identification. We need to reinstate. At least let's introduce sanitizers. People use their biometrics as they use the sanitizers. By being able to be able to reverse that, was a challenge for both the staff and the customers. Because we had told them, don't worry, just come and give us your IDs and let's first put aside the gadgets for use of biometrics. So it became a challenge. So that becomes one of the challenges of managing change in hard times. And of course, quickly gaining appropriate approvals for certain things, especially when they are related to budgets, becomes a challenge. And of course, that takes us back to the issue of doing the right thing rather than doing things right. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, there is this gentleman again, Peter Drucker. We had even named one of the lecturers, Peter Drucker, who said that the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is to act with yesterday's logic. Meaning that in hard times or when you want to change things, yesterday's logic doesn't apply. You need to take into account the changed things to be able to identify the logic that you need to use for you to continuously, deliver services to the customers in a non-fragile way, as we saw at the start. In hard times, we need strong leadership. We need for agility and swiftness. You need to be forward-looking, ready to transform and think differently. Usually, it is a challenge for people to be told to think differently. We used to say thinking about outside the box. It is not as simple as it is said. It is something we need to do deliberately, especially when we are operating in hard times. We need to break down boundaries, and we don't need to always focus on formalities. We need to refocus. And most importantly, we shouldn't sacrifice the long term for the short term. As we do things as we do the strategy tuition. And of course, we need to understand and map all the three dimensions: the planning, the thinking, the decision making. We need to take into account the financial perspective, the operational, as well as the behavioral perspectives of business, as we've seen during the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I had to share with you. I thank you very much. I probably will sit down and wait for questions. Thank you very much.
Ministers, I think you can see the CEO in charge in hard times. Now, Fabian has given a very good account of how Centenary Bank has responded to the COVID environment. He has demonstrated that COVID, after all, presented opportunities for the bank. And many of us, I'm sure, have experiences to share how to respond to these hard times. I personally happen to associate with an industry that was totally grounded by the pandemic, but quickly we had to think, do we just get to a halt? And this is the aviation industry. But we had to look for opportunities, and indeed during the pandemic, your fleet of bombardiers was not packed all the time. Although some people wondered.
Less costs here, less costs there. But that is really looking at the short term. We should not lose the big picture of things. You can make a few savings, what I would call spurious savings, and lose the big picture and goals of the organization. And also to comment that actually some organizations, a few which I wouldn't want to name, they say that actually in this period, there has been a silver lining in the cloud. The staff have had more productivity. They have worked even harder than ever before. Even those working from home, when they look at the totality of things, they've done much more than they had projected before COVID.
Okay, do we have any hands at the back? Okay, Fabian, I see another question online here saying, thank you, CPA Fabian, for the nice presentation. Please comment on the impact of cybersecurity on change management, the case for Centenary Bank. I think we can take those for now as we wait for any other questions.
Thank you. Is it on? Okay. Thank you very much for those questions. The first question is, how do you balance change management or transformational management with the legal framework? Of course, as you aim at doing the right thing, as you aim at doing the right thing, not doing things right necessarily, you want to ensure that the legal perspectives are balanced, because at the end of the day, you can't quickly change the legal framework, unfortunately. But at the same time, you have to continue operating. So it is a balancing act. I don't know how to prescribe it, but it is a balancing act. It is a call you have to make to ensure that as you make the right decision, it doesn't go against the legal framework that is in place, and it becomes a challenge. The other question was the culture. How did culture impact on the change management? Definitely, culture is usually very critical, very central in whatever we do, and every organization has its own culture. And changing things, changing culture, I guess, is one of the most difficult things that can ever happen to managers, to leaders. But again, I talked about the things of creating a sense of urgency. I talked about the thing of communicating. In the process, for example, if we are seated in a room like this and there is fire, but our culture is to, not to be bothered and so on. If there is fire and somebody tells you fire is coming, you probably may forget the cultural setup under which you go. That's when we talk about various modes of management, because you would say in the normal environment, you will say my leadership style is consultative. But when it is a crisis, it can't continue to be consultative. It may evolve into autocracy. To be able to manage the situation, thereby doing the right thing, and then later you will reconcile when things have been managed. So culture is important, it is critical, and it always needs to be taken into account. But of course, you don't want to allow it to stop transformational change, especially when you are faced with hard times. Yes, thank you very much for the comment of not losing the long-term perspective of things and always keeping in check the bigger picture. It is very important. Of course, some institutions may think that, okay, we are saving, we should continue to save, we shouldn't invest. Even us, we had to postpone some investments. But that didn't mean that we'll never invest. We were supposed to open 3 branches this year around June, but we decided to postpone, and we are just opening them now in this month and next month, because that was a strategic decision. It is a bigger picture thing. It is a long-term thing. You don't want to just say now we will never invest in branches, or we will never invest in those big ventures or projects, because profits have not come the way we had expected. So you always want to keep in perspective your strategy, your bigger picture of things. The impact of cybersecurity for change management, yes. In the morning, I think during the presentation of corporate governance, uh, we understood that we now have to think technology. Thinking technology, of course, technology is the in thing to be able to manage the changed environment or the new now, or the new normal that we have. But as we do investing and adopting technology, there's attendant risk of cyber security. And of course, I'm sure you've already seen it. There are those who couldn't, for example, safeguard their ATM cards, and somebody had to get in touch with the PIN for that card and went and withdrew money when the owner is not aware, or to go and do an e-commerce transaction without the knowledge of the owner. So all these are the risks. We've had the hackers. I'm sure you heard about the recent scam of an aggregator or telecom and the banks, whereby there were those issues and some money was lost. All those become the attendant risks as we adopt technology. But what we are saying is that we need to ensure that we sensitize the users of technology. We need to sensitize them to know the implications, to know the risks involved, and be able to avoid them. We need also, and we are investing quite heavily in security systems. You talk of firewalls, you talk of, so many things, the technology people that we talk about. The other day, we are in the process of finalizing budgets, but when they come up with their budgets for IT security, renewing this, putting in place this, it is quite a heavy investment. Our investment in technology currently is about 25% of our OPEX goes to technology, including security, licensing, and so on, which is big. So the idea would be, how do we ensure that we optimize that investment? But at the end of the day, ensuring that systems are secure and people's money and data and information is secure. So it is important to invest in security systems. It is important to sensitize and train people to know how to safeguard against cyber security risks.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience? I have some online. One is from Agre Mankati. So thank you, CPA Fabina, for the nice presentation. I think that one is okay. Samson Wire says, great presentation. During the lockdown, many managers have realized that they could do the same amount, if not more, with a smaller team. But COVID-19 emphasizes empathy and compassion and restraint from laying off staff. What advice would you give to managers conflicted with such a position? It's similar to Dan Ujuzi, who asked at what stage in change management should people be laid off? We also have one from Frederick. It's okay. Thanking you for the presentation. Before the advent of COVID-19, how were you able to introduce change and be appreciated by all your stakeholders at Centenary Bank that has led to over five-fold growth and the profitability of the bank? Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, there is a hand there.
I think I can stand, because somebody was saying that when I'm standing, I'm seated because of the height. Thank you very much for the. I'm by the name Laban, Vice working in the Ministry of Health. Thank you very much for the eloquent presentation. I know it dwelled much on the interactions of the bank and as an institution, and putting into consideration that Centenary Bank, as a bank, has a multitude of clients, both small scale and large scale. You have presented well on all the interventions that the bank has put in place as a bank. But most of the clients in the banking sector, especially the small scale clients, are closing shop. What intervention, if any, is there? Not under corporate social responsibility, but to help clients that have stood with Centenary Bank right from its infancy, that right now are closing shop because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, any other question? I think Fabio, you can take those.
Thank you very much. I begin with the first one to do with in the process, you realize that you can do more with the smaller team. This was going to be inevitable. We've realized as one of the lessons that you indeed can do more with less, as again we had in the morning, which is a good thing for the institutions. Sustainability, to have empathy with the staff who have been around. It may not be their problem that this happened, be able to open up the eyes of the enterprise or the institutions to try to be as efficient, streamlining operations or changing models of operations and so on. What we've done, of course, we've also been faced with this, but what we are saying is that we are not going to lay off people, and we haven't laid off any, but you realize that we've been recruiting. So instead of recruiting now, when gaps happen, when there's need for further business growth, then you use the capacity that has been generated or created by this situation, the headroom that has been created with these excess, resources to be able to help you to continue further growth. That is what we are taking as the strategy, and in the process, it becomes a win-win situation rather than laying off people. But again, the other lesson that comes through is that the only safer person will be the entrepreneur rather than the employee. So we need to ensure that we need to try as much as possible to encourage people to create their own jobs instead of always looking to being employed. Because we've now noted that it is not safe at all always to continue to be an employee. Anything can happen anytime. If you find an employer who is not who doesn't have empathy, and we've seen a number of them being laid off. We've seen a number of people where salaries have been reduced or even stopped and waiting for the time when, God's providence happens and be called back to begin work. So being an entrepreneur, forming our own jobs, creating our own jobs, I think is a thing that needs to be emphasized and promoted. The second question was before COVID, BC. Before COVID, how were we doing changes? And they were getting implemented. The way we are doing them now, SC, after COVID. Of course, the changes that have happened at the bank have involved a lot of changes, a lot of transformation. And the model we've been using to ensure that people embrace changes is the model I talked about of change management, being able to identify the need for change, being able to ensure that every celebrate them, set more targets, make the changes. People will appreciate that whatever is being changed is for the good of all, everybody, mutual benefit for both all the stakeholders, the shareholders, the employees, the customers, everybody. And in the process, the institution changes. The other question was small clients, who are closing shop. How are we intervening? How are we supporting? Of course, it is a concern, and especially to us as a bank, because our biggest clientele, our target market are those ordinary Ugandans, small, especially those in the rural area, operating small enterprises. So if they are getting challenges and they are closing, it means we are not safe either. It is therefore incumbent upon us to find ways of supporting them. And one of them is, first of all, to ensure that they are financially literate. They get to understand what they can get from the banks, how they can have the banks support them, how they can do savings, for example, how they can come and have the bank support them to stand rather than closing shop. And we are emphasizing that it is a thing that we've been doing over time. And now we are going to do it even more intensely. The other thing is to ensure that we do the things I talked about, of ensuring that we've created products or services that respond to the needs of these enterprises. So these services have to be usable, they have to be addressing their needs. If somebody needs a small loan to purchase a small equipment, we have those small loans. If somebody needs to be encouraged to first save so that he can leverage on those savings to borrow, rather than borrowing without any savings or borrowing to spend on useless things that will make him close the shop, that one we need to ensure that they understand usability, accessibility, ensuring that people are able to access services. That's why I talked about the various channels of distribution that have been put out there for people to not necessarily being able to look for our banking hall, but to use their phones wherever they are seated, in the comfort of their homes or wherever, to be able to transact, to be able to ask for services and so on. The issues of ensuring that the services we offer are sustainable. Sustainability is very important. And that way, if we are out there, and also ensuring that when we do give these services, we ensure that they also benefit, social accountability, not only financial accountability, but social accountability as well. So that if somebody worked with you at the beginning of the year and you was not able to take their children to school, at the end of the year, because of working with you, they are able to get school fees to take their children to school. That is the social accountability that we have always been emphasizing. As a bank, we have what we call the triple bottom line. Triple bottom line, of course, we make money because we have to survive, we have to be sustainable. But also, as we make that money, we need to ensure that the customers that we serve also survive, socially grow, and also to ensure that as we are out there delivering services, the environment is also protected. Those are the 3 Ps, the triple bottom line that I'm talking about: the people, the profits, and the planet. So through this, of course, it is not a short-term thing, it is a long-term thing, it has to be a sustainable thing. We may not stop people from closing shops. We may not do it, it may not be within our means, but we try to use whatever we have to ensure that we minimize, those people who may be going wrong.
Thank you very much, CPA Fabian, for the presentation, for your time at this annual seminar. Definitely, from the Master of Ceremonies point of view, I think you've walked to the top. It's not survival for the fittest, but survival for the fastest. So he has served 27 minutes. I think he's the fastest presenter. Thank you very much, Fabian. Over to you, Master of Ceremonies.
And thank you, CPA Godfrey. I didn't mean to stop you from doing whatever you're doing. I just felt like being closer to you. So if you are still doing something, please go ahead.
Well, if you allow, I want to thank the audience. It's a very cold afternoon. And I'm sure many of them have braced the afternoon. I can see the jackets and everything. So I want also to applaud you, and please applaud yourself for this afternoon. I'm sure there are those who opted not to come back for the afternoon session. It was really cool. So over to you, MC.
Thank you, CPA Godfrey Goma, for navigating us through this wonderful and enriching presentation from CPA Fabina Kasi. It's not surprising that he's done that because he has been at the steering of a transforming organization, and he has done it practically. So thank you, Fabian. There is a tradition which both of you know that whoever has presented is recognized by the Institute with donations. Not cash donations. It's given, we give you some extras to appreciate your services because you do research and take time off your busy schedules to come and present to us. The change today is that we just point the gifts and you go and carry them yourself. We don't want to put you at any risk whatsoever. So CPA Fabina Kasi, those are your gifts. Yeah, thank you. At some point, you will either allow somebody to carry them for you or you carry them yourself. It's your choice. From now on, they are totally yours. Dear participants, allow me to recognize some people we've been with since morning. I'll start with the past presidents. There is a tag in this country which refers to past presidents. These don't follow in that category. These are honorable past presidents. I'll start with the past presidents whom we've been able to recognize both physical and online. I'll start with the second president of the Institute, David George Opio Okeros, CPA. Now I've put myself in a bind because I have given him a number. There are others recognized, but I don't know in which order they became president. But I know that the one here, the other one here was the seventh, CPA Protazio Begumisa. And you can see the color of his mask. He's a flag bearer of the people associated with that color. And we need him in the August House to drive our agenda. We wish you well. And sometimes wishes for people in such a struggle are not enough. We wish him well, but also we want to support him well. And also prayers are not enough support. So you can send fuel of Shera for its supporters. We also have virtually, I think I've got them in the right number, but I don't know the numerals. We have President Joe Baridawa, he's attending online. We have President Narendra Thaka. I hope I've got it right. At least the Thaka, I've got it right. And we have the sixth, I think, Ben Patrick Kagoro, CPA Ben Patrick Kagoro, who's attending. Thank you, dear presidents, our beloved presidents. Thank you very much for attending. We have some past council members, like Mrs. Fawn Cousins. Thank you. She's, I think, one of the most dedicated members of ICPAU. She's ever with us. Thank you, Fawn. We have her neighbor to the left, Professor Simeone Wanyama. Thank you very much. Now we have present council members. Another one. Please, the other one, remove your mask and recognize it. The other one, please, we recognize you at least. Who is the other one? CPA Patrick Kaberenge, we recognize him in another capacity, a pass holder, pass P-U-R-S-E, of the giant Moneybags. That is Mr. Moneybags, CPA Moneybags. The current council members, we have CPA Geoffrey Byamugisha, CPA Constant Mayende, CPA Stephen Henneget. I will say the one I'm going to say last for a special reason. Then we've got CPA Godfrey Semugoma. And finally, I'm going to request you, Madam, to stand and wave to your people, because many of us have been reading your name. Madam Namuli Sarah, who represents the Ministry of Education. And I thought I saw CPA Josephine also. Yeah. Okay. And sorry? Thank you. That's a council member. CPA Stephen Ojambo. Okay. Yeah, as we all know, we have a big council. And we should teach a lesson or two to the US only, because we have outgoing council, incoming council, all working for the institute harmoniously. Ladies and gentlemen, today has been good. I don't want anybody to say anything about any hitch. The hitches are behind us. Going forward, we'll have a smooth sailing. And to a large part, it's attributable to the powerful prayer said in the morning by CPA Professor Wanyama. I will ask if there is a volunteer who wants to thank God, because Professor was praying that we have a good day. If somebody can volunteer to come and thank God for having seen us through the hitches. Oh, I have received here a note that some council members are online. The problem is the person who has written, who has such a bad handwriting. Sorry. I thought the word, he wrote something here or she online, and I thought it was a name, and I couldn't figure out which council member is called online. But include Madame Mubede Edna Rugumayo. Then we have Professor Rhoda Orobia online, and we have Gloria Tuhaise. She's also online. Did I get a volunteer for the prayer? No, I'll just direct Mr. Moses with Canon, actually. Father must have prayed. So Canon, you're going to pray to thank God for the day. And it's an order from above. Tomorrow we're starting off the day at 8:30. And I want to make a commitment for my namesake. What is the MC for tomorrow? I saw him around. That we are going to be on time, start off at 8:30 a.m. As I requested as we are going for lunch, we request the people at home, please hold your dinner between the hour of 6:30 and 8:30 so that we continue the fellowship to its end from the beginning. And all of you who are here, 8:30 is the end of dinner. We'll give you those 30 minutes to move from here to where you won't be liable for curfew. As you know, we are all still under curfew. 6:30 we'll start the dinner in the tent. We just had our lunch, and 8:30 it will be closed. If you come after 8:30, you eat like fries. So Kanoni Bwire, please come and how can I even tell you what type of prayer pray? You a canon. I'm a simple Sereve. Please, Canon, take us through. Thank you for being a very good audience for the day.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, the Father of our Lord Jesus, we just want to thank you for the love and the mercy to us. We thank you for the things that you've given us to gather here, even online, having this, having different people. We're grateful for the speakers that given to us today. Remember, you have put upon us. We thank you. For bringing us to the part of the evening. Don't apologize us and take us to where the dinner is house. So in the evening, we praying for the remaining part of the seminar going to come tomorrow. Thereafter, we are going to pray for the we pray in the glory will keep everything smooth. So for the IT, tomorrow and the day after. Bless our Lord. Thank you for the blessing.
Thank you. I've been informed, reliably informed, that there is tea. The tea is going to be served from where we had the black tea, near the lake, but don't venture beyond the fence because the waters may not surrender you back to us. The tea will run from 4 up to 5:30. So if you want to exercise first, have your tea, or you want to do the tea and then go. Please, the tea is available and it's paid for. Don't worry. Just go and enjoy. Sorry? Hey, I'm really very sorry. I've been again informed that our own Honorable Nandala Mafab is also attending online.